So we're down here at the Isle of Man Food and Drink Festival all afternoon through till 5 o'clock when the show closes for this year. And I'm joined now by Charlotte from the Apple Orphanage. So Charlotte, how's the weekend been for you?
It's actually been phenomenal. I think this has probably got to be the best food and drink festival to date, really. Been overwhelmed by how many people have come down. The feedback's been fantastic and the atmosphere's just been awesome.
And actually, it still has a very good atmosphere, although it is raining, and I don't think we're going to get away from this now for the rest of the afternoon. It is raining, we do have to just get on and carry on regardless. But the atmosphere down here hasn't really changed, even though the weather has.
No, not at all. I mean, if you look around now, and there's people all outside in the rain, milling around, and they're just getting on with things. They're enjoying themselves, walking around, not at all phased, and that's exactly what we need, really. I think everyone's used to living on the Isle of Man, so why not just crack on with some classic Manx weather?
I think we're all used to it this year after the rest of the shows that we've been to in Wellies and Rainmax.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is quite a welcome respite in terms of weather, isn't it?
So, what have you been selling down here over the festival?
So we've got a pretty good range this year. We've got our classic Manx apple juices, really good range of single variety juices ranging from sweet to crisp, everywhere in between, and all sorts of fantastic historic British and Manx varieties. But we've also got a really good range of presses. It's probably the largest selection of presses we've had ever, I think. So we've got our old favourites such as Gooseberry Twist, which is like our version of a Manx lemonade. We've got elderflower Blush, which is a fairly new one. It's quite subtle and delicate with a hint of rose. Then we've got our classic sort of autumnal favourite, Cherry Berry Boom, with Manx elderberries, really dry and like fruity and refreshing. And then what we're really excited about is our brand new wild cola. So it's our first batch of cola. We've launched it for the first time this week, and the food festival was a brilliant opportunity to get a bit of feedback. So we just want to get any and all brutal honesty feedback, and actually we've been overwhelmed with the positive response, which is fantastic. So we've tried to put our Manx spin on it as we always do. So it's made with foraged Manx pine needles, which gives a fantastic citrusy and herbaceous sort of notes, really high notes. It's much more delicate and sophisticated than a regular cola, much lower in sugar, all natural, and loads of natural vitamin C and vitamin A as well. So yeah, it's a cola you cannot feel too guilty about, and delicious flavours to boot.
Certainly sounds lovely. I think I might try one of those before the end of the day. And we're getting to that time of the year again as well, where people on the island that have apple trees maybe have too many apples. They can come to you and you do kind of like a swap, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. So we run what we call our fruit exchange. So we're open all the way till the end of November, which is typical apple season. So it's still fairly early in terms of apples, but apples are definitely ripening now. We take any sort of apples at all, eaters, cookers, even crab apples, which are fantastic for our cider, which is made from 100% Manx apples, and crab apples always go in there. So the only thing we're really concerned about is that the apples are ripe. That's the only thing. We just can't use underripe apples. And if you're not sure, if you've got a tree you're not really familiar with, cut it down the middle, check for the colour of the pips. So the pips need to be a very dark brown verging on black. And when they're that colour, then they're nice and ripe. If they're white or very light brown, just leave them on the tree for longer, because it takes surprisingly long. And apple season is always longer than you think. You get some varieties that maybe won't even be wanting to be ripe until about December. So always worth doing that. But yeah, we're open Wednesdays to Saturdays, 1 till 6, for people to swap their fruit. And not just apples, any soft fruit as well. So pears, rhubarb, any kind of soft fruit and berries. Everything's a go. So pop down, we measure how much you give us and give you your choice of apple juices or presses to go home with right there and then, so it couldn't be simpler.
And you mentioned just before your cider, you also do a sparkling elderflower wine as well, don't you?
Yeah, that's right. So we call it elderflower Cashel. Cashel is the Manx Gaelic for fizz or sparkle. So it's just our way of putting a spin on like a champagne, really. But it's nice and low alcohol, so it's really, really refreshing. It doesn't knock your socks off. 3.5%, medium dry, really lovely elderflower floral flavour and a nice clean citrus finish. So that's a classic, and they're all selling that as well as the cider down at the bar today, which is fantastic. So you can actually grab a bottle to take home if you want.
And after the festival's all over, where on the island can people get your products from?
So we have a surprisingly large range now. We've got about 40 or so cafes and restaurants across the island. So it's difficult to make a massive list, but if you think about the places that always make homemade anything and they always source local, those are the sorts of places that have our things. So the likes of the Alpine, Noah Bakehouse, Sugarloaf Cafe, Greens, the Boatyard, those sorts of things just dotted all around the island. And in terms of retail outlets, there's a couple, and I'm sorry if I miss anyone on the list.
I have put you on the spot a bit.
Yeah, I know, forgive me. So we've got Close Lease Farm Shop down in Patrick, just around the corner, the deli at Tinwald Mills. We've got a lot of the EVF petrol stations stock the apple juice and cider, and mostly Manx in Douglas. So there's a decent decent spread of places. And if you ever want to order a box, then we do home deliveries every Monday, so you can always just drop me a message.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for talking to us this
No worries at all.
afternoon.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.